Today, we're going to dive into a compliance tripwire that catches even the most seasoned nonprofits off guard: the annual cycle of charitable solicitation registration renewals. This explainer is part of our multi-state fundraising compliance series, and it's brought to you by the experts at Ironwood Registrations, where we really focus on breaking down these complex topics into practical, easy-to-understand terms. You know, a lot of nonprofits are pretty familiar with the initial process of registering to fundraise. But here's the thing that often comes as a surprise. Registration is not a one-and-done deal. Most states actually require you to renew that registration every single year. So in this explainer, we'll walk through exactly why these renewals are required, the different kinds of deadlines you're going to run into, what a renewal actually includes, the very real risks of missing those deadlines, and finally, how you can manage it all when you're fundraising in more than one state. Okay, so let's start with the most basic question. Why do states make you do this every year? Well, it really all boils down to one simple idea: maintaining transparency, both for your donors and for the state regulators. Think about it. Nonprofits are always evolving, right? Your finances change, leadership turns over, programs expand. These annual renewals give regulators a chance to review your latest financial info, see who's currently on your board, get a heads up on any big structural changes, and just generally keep track of your fundraising. It's all about making sure the public record stays accurate. All right, let's move on to the next big piece of the puzzle: deadlines. Now, while renewals are pretty much always an annual thing, the specific when can get kind of complicated because, you probably guessed it, it varies a lot from state to state. So this is a really helpful way to see how it works. Some states will tie your renewal deadline to your organization's fiscal year end. Others link it directly to when your IRS Form 990 is due. And then you have a few that just have one fixed date on the calendar for every single charity. Now, what this really means for any organization fundraising in multiple states is that you're likely going to have renewal deadlines scattered all throughout the year. So now that we've covered the why and the when, let's get into the what. What do you actually need to pull together to file a typical renewal? The paperwork might seem pretty straightforward on the surface, but it really relies on a specific set of key documents. So let's break down what's actually needed to get one of these filings done. For the most part, the core requirements are pretty consistent. You're going to start with your most recent IRS Form 990. Then, you'll need your financial statements, and depending on your revenue, these might need a formal audit. From there, you'll give them an updated list of your officers and directors, fill out that state-specific renewal form, and, of course, pay the filing fee. And this slide right here highlights a super critical connection. Because so many states require your Form 990 or a formal audit, your state compliance deadlines are directly linked to your own internal financial reporting timeline. I mean, you can't file the renewal until the audit's done, and the audit can't get finished until the books are closed. It's really a chain of dependencies you have to manage. This brings us to a much more serious topic. What happens if you miss one of those deadlines? The consequences for being out of compliance can be pretty significant, and it's really important to understand what the risks are. Missing a deadline isn't just some small paperwork mistake. It can actually set off a whole chain reaction of consequences, starting with the most common one. First off, you will almost certainly get hit with late filing fees, and these can add up fast, creating an unnecessary financial headache, especially if you're trying to manage this across multiple states. But it doesn't just stop with fees. The next thing you might get are official deficiency notices from the regulators. These are basically formal warnings telling you that your organization is out of compliance and you need to fix it immediately. From there, things can escalate to a temporary loss of your active registration. This is a big deal because it means you can no longer legally ask for donations in that state. That could totally derail a major fundraising campaign or even a grant application. And in some places, you could be looking at even tougher administrative penalties. The bottom line is, these are real, tangible risks that you can absolutely avoid with some proactive management. Okay, let's move into our final section and see how this all fits together. When you're fundraising in a lot of different states, managing compliance really becomes an exercise in juggling a whole bunch of moving parts. I mean, just look at how complex this can be. Every single state can have its own unique filing form, different rules for when you need an audit, its own renewal deadline like we just talked about, and a totally different fee structure. This is exactly why having a structured, organized system is just non-negotiable for successful multi-state fundraising. But let's try to reframe this for a second. This isn't just about avoiding penalties.
As this quote says so well, renewals are really an opportunity to keep your records accurate, maintain that transparency, and make sure your public filings actually reflect what your organization is doing right now.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Consistent, proactive management is absolutely key. That's what allows your organization to maintain continuous registration, so your vital fundraising can move forward without any of these costly interruptions. For any nonprofit out there fundraising across state lines, the big takeaway is to just regularly review your renewal schedule. Ask yourself, does it line up with our fundraising calendar? Are our financial reporting timelines in sync? Answering those questions will help make sure your compliance keeps up with your mission. And that concludes our explainer on registration renewals.